This is a prison specifically for beautiful girls. Inside are sexy succubi, terrifying corpse demons, and even indescribable creatures. The one who arrested them was the prison warden Aiden. He was once the strongest man on the continent, but unfortunately, Lao Deng is dead. Xiao Deng has now lost all his strength, but fortunately the entire prison is made of mercury, and the female prisoners can basically not break the cell door. But this vampire refused to believe in evil. He dug the tunnel for 20 years without eating or drinking, and now he has finally regained his freedom. But the next second, the warden Aiden appeared behind him, and then he ruthlessly pressed the shutter of the camera. You were originally only sentenced to 2 days, but now it seems that you will have to add a few more years. The vampire asked, "How did you find me?" "You are a vampire, and you have to go to the toilet for 8 hours every day. If you don't dig a tunnel, do you eat in the toilet? As for why we arrested you now, of course we want to use you as an example to other prisoners." He was furious and was about to attack Aiden, but the next second, a gun was pointed at him. The person holding the gun was none other than Aiden, who was also a prisoner. Alice, the Eclipse Witch, also arrived, and the necromancer Lena arrived late. The vampire was shocked. "Why are you helping him? If we join forces, he will surely die. Don't you long for freedom?" The three of them responded to him with silence. Aiden finally spoke. "Don't bother yourself. I have already signed a contract with them. Are you going to go back by yourself, or will I beat you half to death first?" The vampire said, "I will fight you. Of course I have to warn you. If you dare to fight back, I will stuff your mouth full of garlic and dry it in the sun for a day." Hearing this, the vampire's expression instantly changed. "Hate it. I just came out to enjoy the moon. I'm going back now. Then you can come back the same way you came out." After dealing with him, Aiden returned to the prison. As soon as he entered, the whole prison was filled with curses against him. He sighed helplessly and decided to turn off the lights. He hadn't taken action in 3 years and was no longer able to control the situation. It was only a matter of time before the prisoners rioted. Aiden couldn't bear it any longer in the face of their shouting and cursing, so he raised his hands and cast a flash spell, which silenced the prisoners, but that was all. This was the only magic he knew. He just hoped that no more troublemakers would come. As expected, an accident happened. This time, the one sent was a werewolf who wiped out a town. Aiden sighed. "Damn my bad mouth. This prison only accepts female demons. There is a sexy succubus who was arrested for pornography. There is an orc sister who only eats human brains. And there are countless cruel girls imprisoned here. But Aiden, the warden, is just an ordinary person." The old Deng was the strongest man on the continent, but an accident caused the young Deng to take over his body. Of course, he did not inherit the original owner's strength, so he never took action again after that, which also caused the entire prison to fall into a situation where a riot could occur at any time. Aiden prayed every day that no more troublemakers would come, but things did not go as he wished. Today, another murderous werewolf came. Aiden sighed helplessly. Through the handover, he learned that this was a death row inmate, and his men gave him an injection of sedatives during the chaos. Aiden stopped Captain Rosen, who was about to leave, and wanted to ask about adding a new building to the prison. Captain Rosen was very straightforward. The higher-ups disagree with this because the money spent on prisoners for 1 year is enough for the slums to eat for 100 years. Nowadays, the conflict between humans and aliens is getting more and more serious. If Lord Aiden can kill a group of prisoners, the people above can also see your attitude. The werewolf just now is undoubtedly your best choice. He is also a death row inmate, so he will die if he dies. After saying that, he left, leaving Aiden standing there with a cold face. Decades ago, humans were comrades in arms fighting against aliens together. Now there is no war, and humans are facing poverty, hunger, and unemployment. The nobles were in urgent need of an outlet, and this outlet was naturally other races other than humans. Aiden finally compromised. Now he had to arrange a cell for the werewolves, but now most of the cells were crammed with 2 or more people. By the way, the succubus seems to be a person. When he heard someone calling him, the succubus came up like a dog. He was swept in by the anti-pornography campaign. Aiden was also speechless. "You were there every time there was a crackdown on prostitution. Please ask the warden to reduce my sentence. I am willing to do anything for you." Aiden became interested. "Are you telling the truth?" "Yes, it's true." Then, he looked at the werewolf being carried in with a confused look on his face. "This is the roommate I arranged for you. Do you like him?" The succubus said, "I like it, you big head ghost." The doctor prepared the tranquilizer for tomorrow, and suddenly he seemed to think of something. "Today is the day. You guys should leave work early, and I will prepare the tranquilizer." In a blink of an eye, Aiden prepared the tranquilizer in the infirmary. Today's moon is particularly round. How can tranquilizers suppress the werewolf under the full moon? This is exactly Aiden's plan. Only if the werewolf makes a mistake can he use an excuse to kill him. At this moment, the succubus was still complaining to his sisters. Suddenly, there was some movement behind him. He turned around and was scared to death. Oh my God, what's going on? This is a prison that only holds witches. There are countless beautiful girls imprisoned inside, including sexy succubi swept in during the crackdown on pornography, orc girls who only eat human brains, and even indescribable creatures. Aiden, the prison warden, has a headache every day. Ellie from Cell 2 applied to buy a comb to comb her hair, which was reasonable and approved. Catherine in Room 6 wants to buy a knife to ward off evil spirits. If you don't approve, tell him not to treat us as idiots. The succubus in Room 13 wants to be acquitted. If you don't approve, tell him that he will be put in solitary confinement if he screams again. Suddenly the doctor rushed in. Warden, I just remembered that yesterday was a full moon. The werewolves need at least 10 injections of tranquilizers. Werewolves under the full moon may harm the succubus. Send someone to check it out. Aiden didn't say anything, but stood up slowly. Then he asked the doctor to look outside, and saw the succubus and the werewolf outside the window being sweetly affectionate. The doctor said that was impossible. Aiden said, I watched him all night and found that he not only didn't hurt anyone, but also cleaned the cell very well. Hearing this, the doctor felt very incredible. As it happened, the werewolf outside the window was staring at the baby in the statue's hands. The doctor seemed to have discovered something. Could he be a bloodthirsty werewolf? It turned out that 100 years ago, humans and werewolves were trapped in the castle. Because of the lack of food, they began to suspect each other, and both sides were afraid of becoming the other's food. At the critical moment, the leader of the human race gave his dead child to the werewolves to fill their stomachs, which shocked the werewolves. After breaking out, these werewolves became blood-killing werewolves. In order to integrate into the human race, they used self-mutilation to restrain the violence brought by the full moon. However, nowadays, humans are crazy about rejecting aliens, and blood-killing werewolves are rarely seen. The doctor also felt something was wrong. If he is a blood wolf, how could he hurt humans? You know, a blood wolf would not fight back even if it was beaten to death by humans. So how could he become a death row inmate? At this time, a prison guard pushed the door open again and said, Oh no, Warden, the werewolf is going crazy in the bathroom. Aiden breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he was not a bloodthirsty werewolf. At this time, the bathroom was already surrounded by onlookers. Aiden was also very confused. Wasn't he and the succubus just fine? The two people who were beaten were extremely angry. They shouted that they wanted to hang the werewolf. Tell me, why did you hit someone? The crowd outside was already very excited, so Aiden had to maintain order. Based on your performance, I have decided to advance your sentence. Do you have anything else to say? He just snorted coldly. I think you just want to kill me. Then what else can I say? Since you all believe that I am a murderer, just shoot me. At this moment, Aiden remembered Rosen's words in his mind, but when he saw the werewolf's desperate face, he thought of the doctor's introduction to the bloodthirsty werewolf, and he finally put down his gun. I, the warden, have always been fair. Bring him to the interrogation room to see me. This is a prison specifically for witches. It holds cold-blooded lowly killers, sexy and cute succubi, and even the noble vampire queen. Without exception, they are all unforgivable sinners. But on this day, the prison sent a blood-drinking werewolf. They are the outliers among werewolves. Their life goal is to integrate into humans. There are even cases where they refuse to fight back even when beaten to death by humans. But this blood-drinking werewolf was sent to prison as a death row prisoner, so the warden Aiden prepared to interrogate him personally. First of all, it was about him beating someone in the bathroom just now. It turned out that the two criminals threatened the succubus first, and he couldn't bear to see his friend get hurt, so he took action. Suddenly, he became emotional. Warden, I didn't kill anyone. I know you are different from others. Since you have objections to the case, let's confront each other. First of all, what did you do before the incident? That day, I just arrested a dealer selling fake liquor. His wife came to the police station to protest, but she died in her home that night. But I didn't kill anyone, let alone shoot. But when I checked your gun, I found that a bullet was missing, and you didn't have an alibi. Aiden was also helpless. There is no evidence to prove your innocence. He became even more emotional. I don't have any evidence, but my character can prove it. I have been a militiaman in the village since I was a child. I help the villagers every day. I even fought against natural disaster-level monsters and saved hundreds of people. You can ask those who were saved by me. But this doesn't prove that you didn't kill anyone. Saving people has nothing to do with killing people. Killing people only takes a moment. You can think about other details. If what you said is true, I will help you. The werewolf's face gradually darkened. I saved so many people, but now I can't save myself. Then he was taken away from the interrogation room. Then the succubus was brought up to prove the werewolf's innocence. He vividly demonstrated how the werewolf had saved him just now. Aiden was very surprised. Why did you faint? I accidentally stepped on the soap and fell down. And the warden, I think he was slandered. We succubi can peek into other people's dreams. His dreams were so hopeless that no one listened to his confession, and he was sentenced to death. Aiden retorted, how do I know you are not lying? I don't decide his guilt. Then are you going to execute an innocent man? These words pierced Aiden's heart deeply. Get out. Someone take him back to the cell. After everyone left, he grabbed his hair dejectedly. In the afternoon, he asked his assistant to look over the case file, and only then did he realize that the entire case was full of doubts, such as why a werewolf would use a gun to kill people. His assistant was puzzled. Are you going to try him yourself? Aiden was silent for a while. It would be more uncomfortable for me to kill an innocent prisoner than to eat a fly. If you are a righteous policeman, would you execute an innocent death row prisoner? Now Aiden is facing this problem. He is about to execute a kind-hearted werewolf. This prisoner has been helping humans since he was a child and has saved hundreds of villagers from the hands of monsters. But now he has been wronged and has become a death row prisoner. As the warden, Aiden looked through the entire file and found that the whole case was full of doubts. In order to find out the truth, Aiden came to the cell and found the succubus. The succubus can peek into other people's dreams. After some friendly communication, the two began to act. The werewolf was sleeping soundly at this time. Under the guidance of the succubus, Aiden successfully entered the werewolf's dream. He seemed helpless in the dream. He didn't understand why humans couldn't fight back even if they wanted to kill them. Is it because they are bloodthirsty werewolves? He was desperate, and he wished someone could save them. At this moment, a pair of warm hands held him. Don't worry, we will try the murderer who hurt you. The person who spoke seemed to be a judge, and the werewolf shed tears of emotion when he heard it. But the next second, the judge suddenly changed the subject. You are too happy too early, because we are going to judge you. Why did you kill an innocent human? You must be seeking revenge on humans because your tribe was killed. Then the hammer of judgment fell. I will sentence you to death. The werewolf couldn't believe his ears for a moment. Why don't you even give me a chance to defend myself? His despair also infected Aiden, and due to his unstable emotions, Aiden returned to reality. It seems that this case is deeper than he thought. The succubus was puzzled. Can't you guarantee a prisoner with your reputation? Even the judge in this case was manipulated. If you want him to turn over, the dead must be able to speak. This sentence also gave him inspiration. The necromancer Lena could make the dead speak. At this time, the voice of the prison guard suddenly came from outside. Welcome Senator Anthony to visit the Rose prison. Aiden was very confused. What was the counselor doing at this time? Athena, the goddess of war, was taken prisoner and imprisoned in the dungeon in a humiliating posture. It turns out that this is a prison specifically for serious criminals. No matter how noble your status is, you are just an ordinary prisoner here. Warden Aiden has recently run into a problem. He is about to execute an innocent wolf girl. Aiden is a fair and just warden. He will not let any guilty person go, but he is also unwilling to kill an innocent person by mistake. But just as he was investigating the suspicious points in the case, Congressman Anthony came to visit him. Aiden was puzzled. Why did you come to visit me in the middle of the night? I advise you not to get yourself into trouble. Didn't I ask Rosen to tell you that as long as you kill the prisoner, I will convince the parliament to keep the prison? But why do you still want to investigate? Let's take a look at the latest newspaper first. The newspaper was reporting on the werewolf incident and also praising the warden Aiden. Anthony's face was gloomy. I've already told you, just execute him. The former hero will personally execute the murderous demon. You will become a hero of the people again, and the prison will be preserved. Aiden finally spoke. But there is no evidence to prove that he killed anyone. Now is not the time for you to seek justice. Only if you execute him will we consider keeping the prison. Aiden remained silent. The eventful night always brought thunderstorms. Aiden thought quietly under the lightning. Suddenly he stood up, as if he had made up his mind. Then he came to a safe, and as the combination turned, a secret door slowly opened. Aiden walked down slowly alone, and then a voice came from the depths. Are you brewing a dangerous plan? Aiden just continued to walk down with the kerosene lamp. Soon he reached the bottom and saw a huge woman who was tied up tightly with iron chains. He said, Aiden, you're here again. At this time, Aiden also spoke. I have decided to help a prisoner get justice, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know the consequences. Suddenly, a huge chessboard appeared at his feet. As long as you win, I will tell you the answer. Because the woman was none other than Athena, the goddess of war. The Roman goddess of war Athena lowered her noble head. Now she was a humble death row prisoner, suppressed in the dungeon in an extremely shameful posture, and the person who imprisoned her was none other than the Warden Aiden. Aiden is a man with a strong sense of justice, but at this moment he is faced with a difficult choice. Senator Anthony wants him to execute an innocent prisoner, otherwise he will directly abolish the Rose prison. Aiden chose to refuse and decided to overturn the werewolf's case. So he came to the dungeon and sought help from Athena, the goddess of war. Athena is willing to help him, but she wants to play a game of chess with him first. If she wins, she will tell Aiden what to do. So, Aiden started playing chess by pushing a chess piece that was bigger than his. Time passed quickly, and the two of them decided the winner, with Aiden being defeated. Athena teased, "It seems that your mind is not here." His mind was full of the werewolf case. There must be a noble manipulating it behind the scenes. Otherwise, the werewolf would not have been sentenced to death so quickly. Now I am at the last step. Either I help them kill people and silence them, or I close the prison. Hearing this, Athena couldn't help laughing. Do you know why this prison was built? Of course it's because of me, the god of war, Athena. You can guess whether they dare to close the prison, and you have to keep an eye on me. If I run away, the prison will really be gone. Athena continued, "How can you, an ordinary person who doesn't even know magic, want to overturn the werewolf case? I have the help of the 3 contracted prisoners. I can continue to disguise myself and let them help me." Athena was even more disdainful. "Then how long do you think you can keep pretending?" This sentence made Aiden silent. "May I remind you that there are more than just these 3 prisoners in the entire prison." This sentence instantly made Aiden realize that there are quite a few people in the entire prison who possess magical powers. Aiden can fully use their power to investigate the case. The 1,000 prisoners in the Rose prison are Aiden's 1,000 means. After getting the answer, Aiden immediately prepared for action. At this time, the rain had stopped outside and the sky cleared up. Aiden also rushed to another cell where the necromancer Lena was imprisoned. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for launching terrorist attacks with corpses. Faced with Aiden's request for help, he was determined to finish reading the book. In order to read quietly, he took out a necklace, which was the undead pendant that could summon the dead. He casually threw such a dangerous thing to Aiden. The moment Aiden held it, a powerful force burst out instantly. Lena said she was very sorry and said she did not control the strength well. Aiden didn't say anything, but his whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Lena felt like she was going to die. For a moment, she thought of the days when she was dominated by Aiden. She was scared. "I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong." The next second, Aiden slowly turned his head and said, "It's okay. This is so cool. Next time I come to see you, I'll bring you some more books." Hearing this, Lena felt as if struck by lightning. Looking at Aiden's back, she was wondering when this guy became so considerate. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. The person who imprisoned her was the Warden Aiden. In order to overturn the werewolf case, he went to the dungeon to seek help from Athena. At her suggestion, Aiden decided to use the help of the prisoners in the Rose prison. First, he found the necromancer Lena, who could control the spirits of the dead. Eventually, Aiden got the pendant that could control the spirits of the dead. After getting the equipment, he rushed to the cemetery without stopping. He wanted to find the bodies of the victims in the werewolf case. But when Aiden opened the coffin, he found only ashes inside. Aiden took out the pendant of the dead and tried it, but it didn't work for a long time. The noise also attracted the person keeping vigil, who looked impatient and said, "Can't you let me sleep?" But the next second, tears started flowing from his nose, and then he ran out for his life. Aiden was surprised and turned around to be shocked. He was surrounded by the undead. "I'm sorry to disturb you all. Let's go back." Aiden had never thought that this undead pendant would be so useful. Suddenly, there was a noise behind him again. It was the victim's undead being summoned. Aiden was very excited. "Tell me quickly, who killed you? I will help you get revenge." Because of the strong resentment after death, the undead actually understood what Aiden said. Suddenly, he exploded and turned into countless fragments, each of which carried his memory before his death. It turned out that someone wanted to rape him that night, and he fought back desperately, but was eventually shot and killed mercilessly. Then the bloody plot came. Aiden shouted, "Why don't you tell me the name of the murderer?" There was no other way. Aiden could only continue to look for clues from the memory fragments. Although he didn't see the face, he saw the police badge on the murderer's clothes and the bullet used when he shot and killed someone. Because he was short of a bullet, he targeted the werewolf who was also short of bullets. The only one who could get someone else's gun was the weapons manager. Aiden rushed to the Armed Forces Department without stopping, but the administrator was thin and a loser, and it was obvious that he was not the murderer. But that doesn't mean he's not an accomplice. Aiden used the excuse that he wanted him to help fix his pistol, and the guy was naturally willing to serve the warden and asked with a smile what the problem was. It's just that the pistol is always missing a bullet. Hearing this, he was instantly struck by lightning, and then he decisively rejected Aiden. Of course, Aiden knew all this, but Bruce was much smaller than the murderer. He must have known about the case. Don't worry, let the bullets fly for a while. In a blink of an eye, it was already dusk. Bruce was very distressed on his way home from get-off work. His mind was full of what Aiden said. At this time, he noticed that the front was surrounded by a crowd of onlookers, and the gravekeeper was vividly describing the scene he saw last night. The dead tavern owner actually told a man that she wanted revenge. All this was heard by Bruce, who was passing by. When he heard the name of the proprietress, he was instantly scared into noodles. Then he ran home for his life and wrapped himself up like a dumpling when he got home. Aiden saw all of this, and it seemed that he had alerted the enemy. The reason why he could see all of this was because he got the help of the witch Alice. This prison held the Roman goddess of war Athena, and the former god also lowered her noble head. Not long ago, a werewolf sentenced to death for murder was sent to the prison. After investigation, Aiden found that there were many suspicious points in the case. So he used the ability of the necromancer Lena to successfully lock on to Bruce, the suspected accomplice, and monitored him with the help of the witch Alice. Alice is a cool and arrogant lady who was sentenced to life imprisonment for controlling animals to attack the military. She said lazily, "Lord Aiden, I helped you. What benefits are you going to give me?" Aiden's face was cold. "Benefits? Do you think we are making a deal?" Alice broke out in a cold sweat, and she remembered the days when she was dominated by Aiden. "No, I was just joking. This is what I should do." Aiden was very satisfied with her reaction. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, "By the way, I plan to buy you some dessert. What do you think of the cream cake on 7th Street? Just hearing the name made Alice start drooling like crazy. Soon it was late at night, and Aiden was flipping through the files while observing Bruce. But he didn't show any suspicious behavior. Suddenly, Aiden closed the file in his hand and said, "It seems that we must use some special means." Bruce was sleeping soundly at this time, but suddenly there was a noise from the ceiling. Bruce was suddenly awakened, and because of his guilty conscience, tears flowed directly from his nose. Then a strand of hair floated in front of him. Bruce looked up and found that the entire ceiling was covered with long hair. He quickly hid himself in the bed and kept reminding himself that it was just a dream. But the next second, a female ghost appeared in front of him with her mouth wide open. "Bruce, I died so unjustly." He instantly launched himself into the air, not caring whether he was wearing clothes or not, and performed performance art on the street. And all of this was seen by Aiden. Only when a person is threatened with death will he seek help from the person he trusts the most, and that person is very likely the real culprit behind the scene. The female ghost was also a prisoner in the Rose prison. She was very disdainful of Aiden's behavior. "As a warden, you actually let the prisoners do such a thing. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at if you tell others about it? What are you afraid of? Compared to this, I am more reluctant to execute a kind-hearted person. I also hope that you will give up your obsession and rest in peace soon." At the same time, Bruce was still running desperately. He had already determined that the female ghost just now was the dead proprietress. Suddenly, a big hand covered his mouth, and then he was dragged into an alley. "Idiot, why are you yelling? Are you afraid that others don't know about this?" Bruce felt like he had grabbed a life-saving straw, and the police badge on that person was exactly the same as the one worn by the murderer Aiden discovered. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. She was imprisoned by the warden Aiden. By utilizing the help of the inmates in the Rose prison, he identified the accomplice behind the werewolf case, and with some special means, he successfully forced the real murderer out. But Bruce didn't know that Aiden was monitoring him. As soon as he saw Jarvis, he began to cry about the strange things that had happened recently. Jarvis's face was grim. "Can't you keep your voice down? If this gets discovered by others, we'll all be doomed. You can stay at my house for a few days. I have a magic circle that's specially made for the undead." Just from the house, it's clear that Jarvis is not a simple person. "But I have to remind you that since you've joined me, this road will be filled with blood." All of this was seen by the crows behind them. On the other side, Aiden also learned the name of the real murderer, and he immediately ran to the werewolf to confirm it. The werewolf silently repeated the name Jarvis a few times and finally thought of the reason for his frame-up. Advantage of the werewolf more than once, but was rejected decisively, which led to Jarvis holding a grudge. The werewolf was puzzled. "Are you going to kill me just because of this?" Aiden thought it was normal. These noble children all have a perverted mentality. That is, if they can't get it, they will destroy it. Unknowingly, it was late at night again. Aiden visited a criminal again. Judging from the shadow, this time it seemed that he was not human. At the same time, he held a bunch of envelopes in his hand. I know you are very unhappy that we didn't read your letter, but there is nothing we can do. After all, nothing good will come of reading your words. How about this? If you do me a favor, I will agree to one of your requests. How about that? There are only 2 unknown words in the prisoner's file. The only thing known is that the letters he wrote have the power of a curse. During the day, a carrier pigeon flew across the sky. Its destination was Bruce's new room. It dropped the envelope and left. Bruce felt very confused when he just woke up, but when he opened the envelope, his face suddenly changed. He saw that the envelope was full of mysterious runes, and Bruce studied it for a long time, but couldn't understand it. After a while, he felt dizzy and suddenly heard a noise behind him. He turned around and found a big hole in the window. What he didn't know was that the sky outside the manor was already covered by darkness. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. The person who imprisoned her was the Warden Aiden. By using the help of the prisoners in the Rose prison, he successfully identified Jarvis, the real culprit behind the werewolf case, and learned the reason why he framed the werewolf. In order to completely overturn the werewolf case, he once again targeted Bruce, the accomplice in the case. Then he used an indescribable creature to send Bruce a cursed letter. When the innocent Bruce finished reading, he immediately felt a splitting headache, and after noticing something unusual, he ran for his life. But when he opened the door, he found that the whole world was full of weirdness, and his whole body couldn't stop shaking. For a moment, Bruce felt that he was abandoned by the whole world. Suddenly, the door was pushed open again, and he turned his head in surprise. "Jarvis, is that you?" But the next second, he collapsed to the ground, because the person who came out was actually the dead boss lady. He was completely desperate. "Is this God's punishment for me?" His eyes suddenly widened. "Jarvis killed you. Why are you bothering me?" This confused the butler. It turned out that the female ghost was just the butler. At the same time, Jarvis behind the door had made up his mind to get rid of Bruce. Just as Bruce was confessing, a bullet suddenly shot at him, and his ear was instantly pierced. But it wasn't that Jarvis missed the target, but a crow interfered with him. The scene was a bit chaotic for a while, and just when Jarvis was about to make up the blow, more crows rushed towards him, which gave Bruce time to escape. He ran out of the manor desperately, but suddenly his feet slipped and he fell heavily to the ground. Bruce opened his eyes again and found himself lying in a grave. He looked up and saw the name of the boss lady written on the tombstone. At this time, there was a noise behind him. When Bruce turned his head, he found that there were densely packed undead behind him. But in fact, there was nothing. Everything he saw was just an illusion. He ran for his life even more frantically, and then a huge tombstone blocked his way, with his name written on it, describing him as a scum who was greedy for money. Bruce was in disbelief. He stood in front of his own tombstone and looked at it for a long time. Then he thought of what Jarvis said to him. "The road to power is paved with blood." Bruce turned his head and looked at the undead following him. At this moment, he seemed to understand. "Were you all killed by Jarvis? Will I end up like you?" The dead did not answer him, but slowly dispersed. Bruce finally returned to reality, and passers-by had surrounded him, but no one knew what he had experienced. Rose Prison, Warden Aiden's office. "Lord Aiden, there is an innocent prisoner in your prison. I am willing to be his witness." The Roman goddess of war Athena was condemned to death, but the Warden Aiden who imprisoned her was an ordinary man. Thanks to his unremitting efforts, the accomplice in the werewolf case finally came forward and confessed his guilt, and he also wanted to identify the real murderer Jarvis. Aiden finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now he only needed the materials to bring down Jarvis. Bruce was taken to prison for protection. On the other hand, Jarvis also knew that the matter had been exposed, and he immediately prepared to run away. But all this was watched by Aiden, who asked the witch Alice to continue to interfere with him while preparing to stop him personally. After arranging the matters of the Rose prison, he rode his horse and chased him all the way. During the process, a little mouse jumped down and ran all the way back to the prison. Under the watchful eyes of the necromancer Lena, it came to the cell of the witch Alice and spit out several bullets from its mouth. It turns out that Alice had already suspected Aiden. You know, how could the omnipotent warden be scared by the undead and keep asking these prisoners for help? Lena was obviously not interested in what she said, while Alice continued to talk to herself. "I don't want to stay in prison for the rest of my life, and Aiden may not be the real Aiden. It seems that someone is going to intercept our righteous warden, so let him verify my guess." At the same time, the werewolf seemed to smell something. "Master Aiden is in danger, let me out." The prison guard was very impatient. What nonsense are you talking about? Someone is following him. I've smelled him. He's very dangerous. The succubus at the side echoed. Werewolves have a very sensitive sense of smell, and they became even more excited. Let me out quickly. I want to save him. This made the prison guard a little overwhelmed. At this time, there was a sound of footsteps. It was Aiden's assistant Flanda. Let him go. He has been found not guilty and will be released soon. I will be responsible if anything goes wrong. Hearing this, the two prison guards slowly opened the cell door. Alice next door was very puzzled. Is the werewolf's nose really that sharp? There is also a small episode. A prisoner was eager to know what happened. The succubus who claimed to be Aiden's official girlfriend said that she knew everything, so the whole prison started a frenzy of gossip. On the other side, Jarvis was running away and was constantly harassed by crows, which gave Aiden time to catch up with him. Jarvis turned his head when he heard the noise, but he didn't expect to be greeted by Aiden's whip of justice. Master Jia, where are you going? I advise you to wait for your arrest warrant at home. At this moment, something strange happened. A sword pierced through the big tree next to him, and a figure flew out from the dense forest. He slashed at Aiden fiercely. In a hurry, Aiden used his horse to block the fatal blow. The werewolf is finally going to overturn the case. With the unremitting efforts of the warden Aiden, the real murderer Jarvis is finally found. But just when Aiden was preparing to arrest him, he chose to run away. Aiden had no choice but to chase him himself. With the help of the witch Alice, Aiden quickly caught up with him. Just as he was about to arrest Jarvis, something strange happened. A figure suddenly appeared and slashed at Aiden. Aiden used his horse to block the fatal blow. I've heard a lot about you, Aiden Garrett. I'm the gold medal bounty hunter White. He introduced himself while asking Jarvis behind him to continue running. I think he was invited by his rich father, but White's goal is not just money. He also wants to kill Aiden with his own hands, because if he succeeds, his worth will definitely skyrocket. Thinking of this, White rushed towards him directly. Although Aiden moved flexibly, he was kicked hard by him, which made Aiden fall badly. White seized this opportunity to send him to see God. On the other side, the werewolf was desperately rushing over here, and finally he arrived at Aiden's critical moment. He jumped down from midair, kicked White hard with all his strength, but was blocked by a protective shield. At the same time, the cross on White's body suddenly cracked, and Aiden took the opportunity to distance himself from him. He was a little confused for a moment. How did this protective shield come out? The situation was critical, and the werewolf just asked him to chase Jarvis, and White was left to him. Aiden was silent for a moment, and finally followed his advice. You must be more careful. The behavior of the two men completely infuriated White. He chopped at the werewolf fiercely, but the werewolf was not so easy to bully. He kicked White's head hard, and the force was so great that White flew backwards several meters. But suddenly a lot of smoke came out. It turned out that the old man, White, had used a dirty trick. He said with a ferocious face, "When I was practicing with the blood-killing werewolf before, one escaped. It must be you." It turns out that in the werewolf's memory, it was White who slaughtered them, but at this time he seemed very calm, and he was using his sense of smell to determine White's location. Finally he found it, and then he rushed towards White without hesitation, and then punched him directly. But he didn't expect that he only hit a piece of clothing, and the real White had already run up the tree. He threw a bottle of potion down suddenly, and the potion shattered in front of the werewolf. Then a terrifying tree demon slowly appeared, and the werewolf's right leg was tightly entangled by branches. All of this was originally prepared to deal with Aiden. In order to completely kill the werewolf, White also prepared a crossbow. Faced with the attack from both sides, the werewolf was covered with wounds in a short while, but this did not mean that he fell down. You have to know that he was a real werewolf. The real murderer Jarvis in the werewolf hidden weapon was executed. It was not Aiden who did it, but Jarvis' biological father. Under the cover of the werewolf, Aiden successfully caught up with Jarvis. When Jarvis saw the lingering Aiden, he was furious, but he had no choice but to keep running. He was running while looking back. Aiden wasn't paying attention and he bumped into a passing vehicle, which made him so excited that his nose was bleeding. The wasted time gave Aiden time to catch up with him. Master Jarvis, you are really panicking. Are you going to come back with me now, or will I tie you up and take you back? At this time, there were countless onlookers around. Jarvis' nose was still bleeding. He quietly touched his pistol, but he didn't expect Aiden to point the gun at him first. Master, you have so many little tricks. Unexpectedly, Jarvis was not afraid at all. He even laughed. So, Lord Aiden wanted to kill me with the air. The disappeared bullet was taken away by the witch Alice in episode 12. Jarvis took out his gun with a smug look on his face. It seems that Lord Aiden wants to kill me with air. Suddenly Aiden let go and threw away the pistol, then used the only flash spell he knew on Jarvis. Then he drew his sword and knocked Jarvis' pistol away with the scabbard, and the blade was already on his neck. Then Jarvis cried, "I just killed a pariah. Why did you do this?" Not far away, a carriage was quietly observing the movements of the two people. At this time, some people also recognized the famous Aiden. With nowhere else to go, Jarvis chose to throw a tantrum. "Help! Someone is killing someone. Everyone, please judge. He wants to kill me and won't let me run." But what he got in return was the blade getting closer to his neck. If you say another word of nonsense, it will be more than just bleeding. Jarvis completely lost his mind. He slowly reached for the dagger at his sleeve. "You forced me to do this," Aiden gargled. But the next second, he was shot in the head. Aiden was completely stunned. The one who shot him was a man with noble temperament. The scene was a bit confusing for a while, and Aiden recognized him as Anthony, who had come to see him in episode 6. The werewolf once said that Jarvis was the illegitimate son of a congressman. At this time, Anthony slowly spoke. "Everyone should know that the recent Veronica shooting case, after investigation, was actually done by the rebellious son Jarvis. As a congressman, I will definitely not let him go unpunished." Then he bowed to Aiden and said, "Lord Aiden, I have brought my rebellious son to justice. Please give me some time to be alone with him." He couldn't help but burst into tears. Now the whole public opinion was leaning towards him. At this time, there was a sudden turbulence in the distance. Aiden thought to himself that it was the direction of the werewolf in white. He ran over there without hesitation, while Anthony, who was still immersed in the grief of losing his son, thought to himself, "Wait," Aiden gargled, "we are not done with this." This is what the werewolf looks like after transformation. So charming that Aiden can't bear to look at it. It turned out that under White's coercion, the werewolves were forced into a violent state, which directly led to great turmoil in the area within a radius of 10 miles. Even Aiden felt that the battle was too brutal. At this moment, his trouser legs were suddenly grabbed by someone, and it was White who was seriously injured. He shamelessly begged Aiden to save him. "Fair Warden, even if I have committed a crime, please punish me according to the law." Aiden was speechless. "Your employer taught you all this, didn't he?" White was very surprised, because Aiden guessed correctly that these words were taught to him by Anthony. Because once White was put in prison, Anthony would be able to rescue him. Of course, White would definitely not admit these. Aiden showed a sarcastic look on his face, and White thought that his lies had fooled him. But the next second, Aiden drew his knife and said, "It's a pity that the heroic Aiden you mentioned is dead. I am a person who has a clear distinction between love and hate." Before White could react, Aiden sent him to see God. Then he looked for the werewolf everywhere. Finally, Aiden found him in a corner, but the werewolf was obviously not in a good state. He was naked from the waist up, and when he heard someone approaching him, he panicked. Aiden quickly covered his eyes. The werewolf was so shy that he just wanted to pull out his coat from the bushes. But the result was not what he wanted. In the panic, his coat was torn, which made it difficult for the werewolf to deal with him. In the end, Aiden contributed his coat. The scene came to the streets of Silver City, where the werewolf and Aiden were walking side by side. He was very curious about what happened to the werewolf just now. The werewolf explained to Aiden very embarrassedly that he had just turned into a werewolf, but not completely. It turns out that he had a defect since childhood, which was that he could not completely transform into a werewolf, so he could not avoid being laughed at by his own people. But every time the villagers would stand up for him, and the whole village had a harmonious relationship with the werewolf race. Thinking of this, he fell into deep memories. Aiden felt very sympathetic towards his situation. "I remember you said you saved a village before, so you can consider going back after you are released from prison." Hearing this, the werewolf looked very depressed. "I dare not go back, because I haven't made a name for myself yet, and it would be too embarrassing to go back like this." At this moment, there was a sudden noise in front of the two. A policeman was driving away a group of ordinary people. The werewolf looked a little strange. These people looked so familiar. Most heartwarming episode of Rose Prison. When the werewolf is about to be released from prison after his case is overturned, he welcomes the villagers who vouched for him. It turned out that when Aiden and the werewolf returned to the prison, they accidentally ran into a policeman driving away a group of ordinary people. The werewolf seemed to know them. He stood there for a long time, and the scene of leaving the village kept appearing in his mind. He once said that he must make a name for himself in Silver City. Thinking of this, the werewolf waved at them excitedly. The werewolf finally returned to the embrace of his family. He blushed and asked everyone why they were here. Everyone responded to him in a flurry, saying that after the villagers knew that he was in trouble, they were worried about him and walked for half a month to see him. The werewolf looked down subconsciously and found that their shoes were already worn out. The werewolf could no longer hold back and cried bitterly, covering his face. The villagers were still worried about him going to prison. At this time, Aiden came over and said, "Don't worry, everyone. Veronica has been confirmed to be innocent and will be released from prison soon. I will guarantee it." The villagers were relieved, but this made a passerby with a pointed face and monkey cheeks very dissatisfied. "What are you guys doing together, you stinky beggars? Don't you know that this is the city center?" The villagers did not get angry about this, but chose to say goodbye to the werewolf. At this moment, the werewolf wanted to say something, but he couldn't open his mouth. He wanted to treat these people who loved him to a meal, but he didn't have the money, so he could only let go helplessly. In the end, Aiden said what he wanted to say. "You came all the way here. Why don't you stay in Silver City for a few days before leaving? Veronica, feel your coat. Isn't there the bonus you just received today?" The werewolf followed his instructions and took out a handful of gold coins. The villagers were stunned because they had never seen gold coins in their lives. Aiden said to the werewolf, "Take this money and treat the villagers to a meal in the city center." At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps. It was Aiden's assistant who came with his men. Seeing that Aiden was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief. "You came just in time. You can go have dinner with Veronica's friends." He looked at the man who had just barked. After all, there are always some people who think they are right. Flanders understood, and then several people decisively loaded their rifles. The man who had been so arrogant just now immediately fled. Then Aiden gave the werewolf a few more instructions, and the werewolf was a little speechless for a while. Led by the prison guards, the villagers excitedly went to the restaurant. Before leaving, the werewolf looked back at Aiden, and then he looked at the village in the distance with a little loneliness. He slowly pulled up his collar, and then took a few deep breaths of the coat that smelled of Aiden. Athena, the Roman goddess of war, actually likes to play flying chess with others, and she plays against them as a death row prisoner. Her opponent is none other than the Warden Aiden. After going through 81 difficulties, the werewolf finally saw the dawn of peace. Fortunately, the matter went unexpectedly smoothly in court. Anthony not only did not hire any lawyer to defend him, but even remained silent throughout the whole process. So the result was naturally that the werewolf was successfully vindicated. However, Anthony tried his best to protect his son in the beginning, but was so decisive when shooting later. The huge contrast between the two always left Aiden puzzled. Was he afraid that the incident would expose his identity as a counselor, or was he afraid that something darker would be exposed? After the incident was over, the werewolf chose to say goodbye to everyone. He wanted to stay away from this complicated place with the villagers. Aiden also returned to the prison and reviewed the matter with Athena. According to his request, Aiden bought some things for the prisoners, because in Athena's view, the matter was far from over. Anthony chose to endure, but he did not choose to admit defeat, so she asked Aiden to buy something for the prisoner, which was also a way for him to protect himself. At this time, the dice on the table were spinning nonstop, and the peace of the entire Silver City would no longer exist. At this time in the prison cafeteria, Alice got up and ate breakfast, which was rare. The prisoners behind her laughed at her and said she was Aiden's lackey, which made Alice very angry. But the next second he changed his expression. "I have been feeling stomach discomfort recently. Do you have any other food?" This green tea look instantly aroused the dissatisfaction of the prisoners behind him. But he didn't expect that the lady serving food actually said yes, and actually brought him a whole strawberry cake. In an instant, the whole prison went crazy, and Alice took the cake and left with satisfaction. At the same time, Lena also came to the library to borrow books, and this time she successfully borrowed the best-selling new book outside. When she saw the title of the book, she instantly entered a wonderful world. At this time, the indescribable creatures also welcomed a new guest, a cute wood elf. He was a little translator sent by Aiden. He could understand the emotions of all things. To the indescribable creatures, he was simply the best partner. After a few words, the wood elf was forced to have a sweet kiss with him. On the other side, in the prison bathroom, the succubus was taking a beautiful bath, and suddenly 2 uninvited guests came. They usually made money by bullying the succubus. At this time, 2 figures appeared behind them. One of them was a tiger man, and the other was a little dragon man. These were the thugs hired by the succubus. It turned out that when the succubus was with Aiden before, he asked Aiden to let him punish the 2 people who robbed him. In the end, Aiden only left him 4 words. "Be careful." After waiting for so long, he finally got his chance. Beat him hard, and if you can't kill him, beat him to death. Now it was the 2 men's turn to be afraid, and soon screams and the succubus's triumphant laughter were heard from the prison. At this time in Anthony's study, he asked the butler to find After. After was a madman who liked to experiment on human bodies, and his beloved daughter was also imprisoned in the Rose prison. Anthony has made up his mind to make Aiden pay the price. He is the cutest prisoner in the Rose prison. Because he is so cute, even the Warden Aiden can't do anything to him. Jalala originally belonged to the Wood Elf clan. Because she slept late at work, she caused huge losses to the noble's plantation, so she was sent to the Rose prison. Since the Wood Elves are naturally able to read other people's emotions, Aiden sent him to accompany the unspeakable creatures. Although sometimes he was looked down upon by other prisoners, generally speaking, he had an easy time in prison. One day, Aiden suddenly came to him and wanted Jalala to help look after a prisoner with a speech impediment. To him, this was just a trivial matter, but when he saw the prisoner, Jalala realized that it was not that simple. The prisoner had no expression on his face, and in his heart he could only think of one word: cry. Jalala's face turned ugly, and he said to Aiden, rather than calling him a human being, it's better to call him a piece of meat that can digest. In fact, Aiden knew this would happen, and he took out his key and pushed the door open and walked in. Jalala then discovered that his hand was injured, and Aiden told him that it was just a scratch and nothing serious. Then he walked into the cell and said, Aiden, let's start today's morning class. Today we are going to talk about Cinderella. At this time, on a street in Silver City, an old man was selling his products everywhere. Suddenly, he was blocked by a figure who was Anthony's butler. Then the two of them came to a hidden room, and the housekeeper was very straightforward. Do you want to save your daughter? The old woman laughed. So what? Do you want me to break out of prison? That's not what I meant. As long as you surrender yourself and go to prison, you will have a chance to rescue your daughter. Upon hearing this, the old woman's face instantly turned cold. You are making fun of me, and reached for the basket containing the magic potion. Just as she was about to take action, Anthony came out and said, Since we dare to let you go, we must have a complete plan. The old woman also recognized him. After all, Anthony had just finished a lawsuit with Aiden, and Aiden was their common enemy. This contains all the information about the Rose prison. I can weaken the prison's forbidden magic circle to the greatest extent and also reduce the number of guards. When you become strong and attack from within, I will also let the insiders in the prison help you, so that you can easily rescue your daughter, and I will let Aiden die. His plan was perfect, so perfect that the old woman had no reason to refuse. Later, took out a bottle of magic potion and drank it. Then his whole body trembled uncontrollably, and the next second he turned into a tall woman, then entered the Rose prison on the charge of smuggling. My daughter is waiting for her mother. At this time, Aiden, who was reading in prison, seemed to sense something, and then he looked out the window quietly. Avinci was reduced to a death row prisoner. Like the Roman goddess of war Athena, he was also a member of the Rose prison. After the werewolf case was over, Anthony, who lost his son, had been preparing to take revenge on Aiden. The peace of the Rose prison was about to cease to exist, but what the warden Aiden did not expect was that the first person to attack him was the prison guard. The story began this morning. Aiden's assistant, Franda, just went to work in the prison as usual, but for some reason, he always felt that someone was following him, and this situation has been going on for several days. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared and ran towards him. In an emergency, Franda drew his pistol. But the next second, the man knelt down and said, Miss Franda, please marry me. This was a problem for him, because Franda had been married for a long time. Upon hearing this news, the man's face instantly turned pale, and several other men nearby also expressed their regret. After returning to the prison, Franda immediately reported the incident to Aiden. It turned out that a writer had written a novel about the werewolf case, in which he not only affirmed Aiden's ability, but also described a lot of female guards in the prison, such as Franda, who became a goddess with a perfect figure. The group of people on the island came to pursue Franda after reading the novel. At this time, Aiden did not realize the seriousness of the matter. He thought he could take this opportunity to find spouses for the single female prison guards. As they were talking, a prison guard came in. He came to resign. He was hired by the most famous women's prison in the empire. Aiden was naturally happy for his subordinates to have a good future. At this moment, the prison doctor also rushed over. He also came to resign. He received an acceptance letter from the medical school. This gave Aiden a headache. You want to resign too? The night quietly covered the Rose prison. Jalala found that there were very few prison guards patrolling today because the other prison guards were in Aiden's office. Without exception, they all came to resign. Some of them were noticed by wealthy businessmen, and some got better jobs, so they were all eager to resign to Aiden. Franda felt something was wrong. If so many people resigned at the same time, the prison would be in big trouble. So he asked his colleagues to work for another month to give the prison some time to recruit people. When they heard this, they immediately became unhappy, because how could their employer wait for them for a month? So their emotions suddenly became agitated, and they began to complain about all the bad things in the prison. They even thought that Franda was jealous of them. The situation was getting out of control. Aiden, unable to bear it any longer, slammed the table and said, As prison guards, do you think this is appropriate? I'm happy for you all to have a better place to go, but I also have one request. Complete the most basic work handover before you leave. But it is obvious that these words cannot impress these obsessed people at all. I don't know who started taking off their clothes first, but with the first person taking the lead, countless people followed and threw their police uniforms and guns on the ground. At this moment, no matter how dumb Aiden was, he realized that the large-scale resignation of prison guards must be the first step for Anthony to launch revenge. He was once the cutest prisoner in the Rose prison, but now he is so scared that he is trembling under the table, and he is madly regretting becoming the lackey of the Warden Aiden. It turned out that the Rose prison was about to enter its darkest hour. Countless prison guards resigned from Aiden for the sake of profit. In just one night, hundreds of prison guards left the prison. This also caused the remaining prison guards to be completely unable to control the situation. At this time, Aiden was still waiting at the prison gate. He still had some expectations for those who resigned, but it was obvious that the reality was cruel. Franda's face was full of worry. If this continues, there will be a riot in the prison sooner or later. At this moment, a little head popped out from the door. It turned out to be a werewolf. He came here specifically to apply for the position of prison guard. Franda was very confused. Didn't you go back to the village? His words made the werewolf shy. Only then did the werewolf realize that the prison was particularly empty today. Suddenly a prison guard rushed out. Oh no, Master Aiden. The prisoners are about to riot, and we can't suppress them with just a few people. At this time in the prison, those few troublemakers were still shouting. They realized that something was wrong in the prison today, and they were clamoring for the prison guards to open the cell doors. At this time, Jalala felt that the whole prison was filled with violent emotions and hid under the bed in fear. At this time, the prison gate opened, and the Warden Aiden finally rushed back. As soon as the noise was heard, the licking dog succubus appeared. Master Aiden, come and protect me. Suddenly his eyes widened because he saw the werewolf behind him. He thought the werewolf had been caught again, so he quickly told him to hide in his house. The werewolf ignored him and slowly put on the prison guard's uniform. The tiger man who had just shouted was very disdainful, and it was obvious that he didn't take the werewolf seriously. This is the first step for a new prison guard, to establish your prestige in front of the prisoners. The werewolf responded to him calmly, and then he pointed at the people who were shouting the loudest. You three, come out. I want to fight you one-on-one. As soon as he finished speaking, the whole prison was filled with laughter at him. The tigress was the most arrogant. No need for others. I can beat you alone. But the reality is that the werewolf only took a few seconds to kill the three of them. Anyone else want to taste my fist? As soon as these words came out, the whole prison fell silent. Aiden was very satisfied with the result. You know, the werewolf is the most powerful one in the police force. The succubus was extremely excited at this moment. Did you see it? Did you see it? My sister is the queen now. Make it clear to me who is the boss in the future. After saying that, he blew a kiss to the werewolf, and the werewolf instantly showed a silly smile. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. As expected of Lord Aiden, even with so few people, he can manage the prison in an orderly manner. The speaker was the director who controlled the finances of Silver City. Aiden was very confused. Mr. Dowd, what are you doing here? The scene comes to the warden's office. There are only 90 prison guards in the prison now. After deducting the wages of those who resign, they decide to reduce the monthly funding for the prison to £600,000. Flanda's face changed instantly. Are you kidding? The maintenance of the prison's forbidden magic circle alone costs 650,000 gold pounds every month. This was Aiden's most helpless moment. The once arrogant warden was now being humiliated by others. Under Anthony's operation, the prison guards resigned one after another, and the financial director of Silver City took the opportunity to reduce the prison's funding to £600,000. Flanda was shocked. You know, the prison's forbidden magic circle alone costs £650,000 every month. And some prisoners are special, and they also spend £80,000 every month, and the prison repairs every month also costs £60,000, and the money spent on prison guards is exactly the least. So you deducted £200,000 because of the resignation of prison guards. Do you think this is reasonable? Doug quickly waved his hand and said, You misunderstood me. If the magic circle is running at full power, it does require so much money, but don't we have Lord Aiden? Can you lower the power a bit? After all, we all know Lord Aiden's strength. After he left, Flanda's face was full of sorrow, while Aiden remained silent from beginning to end. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and then he slowly said, From now on, you are the deputy warden. When I'm not here, you can take full charge of the prison affairs. I have to think carefully about how to survive this period of time. Flanda broke out in a cold sweat. You mean we are in trouble? These recent incidents are not coincidences, but a conspiracy against the prison. And the mastermind behind this is not only Anthony, but there may be other nobles as well. When the prison gate opened again, Franda changed into a new set of clothes. Some prison guards recognized that it was the deputy warden's clothes. I'm notifying everyone that Lord Aiden has other things to do. From now on, I will be in full charge of the Rose prison. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire prison was filled with laughter at him. Franda was very calm. The one who laughs the loudest will be beaten with 20 batons each. Unexpectedly, the two men were even happier. Who do you think 20 batons can scare? Veronica, you carry out the order. The werewolf's expression was innocent. If the baton is broken, you don't want me to compensate you, right? The two prisoners panicked instantly. By the way, let me tell you that all the doctors in the prison have resigned. If you get injured, it will be up to you whether you can survive. Then he gathered the remaining prison guards together. He wanted to maximize the efficiency of the prison guards. At the same time, the prisoners in other cells also quieted down. A King Kong Barbie was particularly attractive. On the other side, a mouse walked into Alice's cell. He already knew that the prison had been deducted funds. Lena, what do you think about this? If you think there is a chance to escape, then go ahead. I won't care about you. On the contrary, if there is a chance, I will definitely get out before you. A riot is about to break out in the Rose prison. Countless terrifying female demons have bared their fangs. Can the warden Aiden turn the tide? Just a day ago, Aiden gave Franda the right to take charge of the prison. Of course, Franda did not disappoint him. He not only suppressed the disruptive prisoners with an iron fist, but also managed the prison guards in an orderly manner. Under his tough management, if the prisoners even just glanced at him secretly, Flanders would scold them mercilessly. The werewolf was standing by and witnessed the whole process of him teaching the prisoner a lesson. Even he couldn't help but sigh at Flanders' strength. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared behind him. He was the warden of District 1 of the prison, and the werewolf was one of his subordinates. The two of them gathered together and chatted aimlessly. At this time, the prison sent another batch of prisoners. The warden of District 2 was speechless. The prison is so short of staff now, and they are still sending more prisoners in, including a prisoner who was caught smuggling. Isn't this a pure waste of resources? The person sitting in the prison van was later. When he heard the conversation outside, the corners of his mouth raised slightly in a strange arc. In a blink of an eye, he was successfully escorted to the prison. As soon as he entered the cell, a voice came from behind him. You are the newcomer, right? Then the quilt was suddenly thrown back. Let me tell you, I am a veteran in the prison. The warden is my male lover, and the prison guards are my sisters who grew up drinking milk together. Call me Big Sister, and I will protect you. Later fulfilled his little wish, and the succubus instantly smiled. Then my clothes will be given to you from now on. Looking at the naive and stupid succubus, later smiled. The sun slowly sets, and darkness is about to cover the Rose prison. At this moment, a man secretly sets fire to Aiden's office. Hey, Xiao, why are you running here instead of staying in Conan? Soon the werewolves smelled a strange smell, and then they turned their heads and looked back, only to find that the entire prison was engulfed in flames. This made the prison guards panic, and at this time there was movement behind them again. It was those strange prisoners who took the opportunity to start a riot. The prison guards initially resisted with weapons, but one of them could not help but retreat, and then the prison guards fled in large numbers. Franda's efforts to stop them were completely useless. A prisoner watched all this indifferently. He understood that Franda was not able to completely convince all the prison guards at this moment. At this time, the prison was in chaos, and all the prison guards were sent out to suppress the riot. King Kong Barbie asked, "Is the prison going to be finished?" It was not because the real protagonist had not yet appeared. On the other side, the rioting prisoners had already rushed up. Opposite them were the werewolf and 3 ordinary people. Suddenly, a cane hit the ground hard, and the warden Aiden finally appeared. As soon as he appeared, the rioters could not help but retreat. Aiden slowly said, "Good evening, ladies." Warden Aiden was finally going to take action. This time, he was going to severely reward the prisoners who made trouble. It turned out that just one day ago, a fire broke out suddenly in the Rose prison, and the prisoners took this opportunity to start a riot. The sudden change left Franda unable to resist at all. At the critical moment, Aiden finally rushed back. As soon as Aiden appeared, the rioting prisoners quieted down. The scene was a little silent for a while, and no one wanted to speak at this time. Finally, Aiden broke the silence first. "Can anyone come out and explain to me? I was only away for a short while, and you dared to attack the prison guards." The vampire spat in the corner. "It's already this late. Why are you still pretending?" Aiden suddenly turned around and looked at him. "Are you so arrogant as a groundhog?" The vampire's face instantly turned red with anger. "Why are you so proud now? Don't you know that there are still a few prison guards in the prison?" So, you are confident? Then I will give you a chance. In the next 3 days, except for the special prisoners, all other prisoners' cells will be opened and you can do whatever you want. I want to see who is stronger, my fist or your life. As soon as these words were spoken, the prison suddenly became noisy, and this was Aiden's only solution. There is a serious shortage of prison guards in prisons now, and it is impossible to find so many prison guards in a short period of time. However, if we can recruit a group of prisoners to serve as prison guards, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so the scene just now happened. After the explanation, Aiden took the werewolf and Flando away. After he left, After hid in the corner. He was very surprised that he didn't understand what Aiden was planning. Then he set his sights on the succubus. Big sister, have you heard of a prisoner named Aiden? Hearing this, the succubus's expression instantly tensed up. Something's wrong with you. You just recognized me as the big sister, and now you're asking about other prisoners. Tell me, do you want to betray me? Later, quickly explained to him that she was just curious. The succubus snorted coldly. I advise you to put away your curiosity. You will never have the opportunity to come into contact with privileged prisoners like Aiden. After all, not everyone can be the daughter of Lord Aiden. Lord Aiden not only cares about him, but also teaches him how to read and write. Hearing this, later, S face slowly darkened, because in his cold-blooded eyes, Aiden could only be a cold-blooded killing machine. Under the careful training of later, Aiden has never had any emotions since he was a child. Even with just one word from him, Aiden can kill everyone in the world. Therefore, he naturally did not allow anyone to take away his murder weapon. At this time, Aiden was in the first step of the office plan. Do you have any questions? Flanda's face was serious. Don't worry, Lord Aiden, I will arrange tomorrow's plan. Then let's meet at a secret place tomorrow. After coming out of the office, he immediately found the werewolf, because Aiden had just asked him to help tell the werewolf something. He leaned close to the werewolf's ear and whispered, "There's a hole in the back of your pants." This was the most tough moment for Warden Aiden. Facing the collective riot of prisoners, he announced in front of everyone, "Open the prison door. I want to see who is harder, my fist or your life." Originally, the prisoners were skeptical about his words, but what no one expected was that the prisoners' cell doors were actually opened the next day, and even the prison gate was opened wide, which made the prisoners a little overwhelmed. At this moment, the warden of Area 1 of the prison appeared, holding a camera and frantically encouraging the prisoners to get out of the prison as soon as possible. Faced with this strange situation, the prisoners unanimously chose to let a big villain explore the way first, because this snake demon kept clamoring to be the first to go out. But at this moment, some unpleasant memories kept flashing through his mind. A long time ago, when Aiden arrested him, he had been biting Aiden's hand tightly in order to resist. Unexpectedly, Aiden put him directly under the crater and kept this posture for 3 hours. When he thought of this, he was about to back out, but the other prisoners disagreed. When the two were arguing, a handsome Kunkin suddenly appeared and said, "Catch him quickly. This is the food for lunch." However, this Kunkin's movement was amazing. He actually jumped over with a big jump, and then he rushed out of the door without hesitation. Under the expectant eyes of everyone, Kunkin, he succeeded, and then he excitedly let out a cooing cry. Of course, the prisoners were more excited than him. They seemed to smell the scent of freedom. But the next second, a magic circle suddenly appeared under Kunkin's feet, followed by an explosion. When Kunkin landed again, he had become Sukin. The prisoners were shocked by Kunkin's death. One prisoner pointed at the district chief angrily and said, "Give my brother back to me." At this time, another prisoner, the Birdman, stood up. He lifted up Jalala, who was eating melons, with one hand and said, "Throw this lackey out. I want to see how many magic circles are out there." Just as Jalala was about to be thrown out by him, Tigress interrupted him and said, "It's just a few magic circles. There's no need to involve innocent weaklings." At this time, 2 people also quietly approached the Birdman. The next second, the Birdman's arm and right leg were suddenly scratched. The intense pain made him let go of Jalala instantly. "I'm sorry, your jailbreak is your own business. Prisoners who don't want to escape will not be allowed to do whatever they want. Don't forget that you are still in prison." The speakers were a pair of twins, who were the heads of District 2 and District 3 respectively. Then the district chief of District 4 appeared and said, "Prisoners who don't want to escape, please come back with me first, so as to avoid innocent people being hurt later." To be honest, the way the succubus carried Jalala really made me laugh. After the words fell, quite a few people chose to leave. Tigress smiled and said, "That's good. Next, let's watch the performance of us strong men." But suddenly, he seemed to see something incredible, and the next second he knelt down suddenly. "I'm sorry, Master Austin, I shouldn't call myself a strong man in front of you. This was the most tough moment for Warden Aiden. Facing the collective riot of prisoners, he actually announced in front of everyone that the prison door would be opened. I want to see who is harder, my fist or your life. As soon as these words were spoken, the prisoners began to cheer, but when the prison gate was actually opened, they were a little at a loss. After seeing their brother walk out of the gate and become a succubi, quite a number of prisoners chose to quit, but this tigress refused to believe in evil and said, I must escape from prison today. Just as he was about to take action, he suddenly knelt down the next second. I'm sorry, Master Austin, I shouldn't be so presumptuous in front of you. Standing in front of him was a tall half-orc. He was the eldest princess of the Marco Polo family and the ruler of all orcs. The woman spoke slowly. Get up, you didn't let me down. In this situation, you didn't bully the weak and didn't bring shame to our orcs. Hearing this, the tigress smiled. Your Highness, are you going to escape from prison? I am willing to be your pawn. Austin rejected him. No, I just brought a friend to watch the fun. The friend he mentioned was also of noble status. Hiding in the corner, After was secretly frightened. He smelled a familiar and terrifying smell. At this moment, a voice came. Good children, is there anyone willing to come to the kitchen to help me? I plan to research some desserts and need someone to taste them. Hearing this, the two prisoners were eager to try, but before they could open their mouths, a figure flew over and said, I'm the prison's gold medal fighter. With me in the kitchen, no one will dare to cause trouble. Lena on the side was speechless. You guy, you told me yesterday that you wanted to escape from prison. Alice said, stop talking nonsense. At this moment, Flanda's voice came from behind Lena. The prison librarian has resigned. Are you willing to take this position? You can stay in there all day. As soon as the voice fell, Lena was instantly happy. After witnessed the whole process from the side, and at the same time, he also understood Aiden's intention. All the areas in the prison with hidden dangers were stationed with strong thugs to make those prisoners who wanted to escape feel fear in their hearts. It was said to open the prison door, but in fact it was to create a larger cell. The only flaw now is the abandoned construction site next to the playground. It is too empty, and with the current number of prison guards, it is impossible to guard it. So, will Aiden place my daughter there? As he expected, Aiden was there at this moment, giving Aiden a morning lesson, but there was a huge wine barrel under his feet. Just then, two figures rushed over. Come and have a look, there is wine here. Aiden smiled. Finally, you took the bait. You have a pretty good nose, but this wine is for the overtime guards. Look at this empty lawn. I'm going to find a group of guards to work overtime to guard it. Hearing this, King Kong Barbie became anxious. My best skill is to watch the scene. I used to be the leader of mercenaries. As long as you give me this wine, I promise to complete your task excellently, Lord Aiden. Aiden agreed reluctantly. But I still want to find someone to help me plow the land, but you can't complete the task alone. Hearing this, King Kong Barbie's little follower was suddenly shocked. He wanted us to find prisoners to do the work, but this would definitely make us make a lot of enemies. Aiden stood up at this time. As long as you find someone to help me plow the land, I can make you drink until you vomit. After, who was hiding aside witnessed the whole process. He didn't expect Aiden to be so bold that he even started to bribe prisoners to manage the prison. But don't worry, daughter. As long as my ant army is large enough, it will be time for us mother and daughter to start killing. Warden Aiden's intention was exposed at this moment. On the surface, he opened the prison door, but in fact, he created a larger cage for the prisoners. First, he used the death of his brother to severely intimidate the most arrogant prisoners. Then he arranged strong thugs in places in the prison where there were safety risks. He then used some small costs to make the prisoners work for him voluntarily. In this way, the problem of insufficient staff in the prison was easily solved. What he didn't know was that Future had been lurking in the prison for a long time, ready to take Aiden on a killing spree at any time. The setting sun dyed the leaves golden. Afterwards, picked up a stone casually, and then his belly slowly moved. Suddenly, his belly turned into a big mouth, and then he stuffed the stone in. At this moment, the prison guard who was guarding here said, Come out. No one will come here. Hearing this, Later slowly walked out from the corner. My ant army is almost ready, but I need a breakthrough, and I need a prisoner who can be won over to help me. The vampire prince in cell 2 just escaped from prison last month and was caught. I think you can easily win him over. At the same time, the vampire looked at the dinner in his hand and was very desperate. I am a vampire prince after all. Is it appropriate for you to keep feeding me pig blood? The prison guard said, You should be content. If it weren't for Lord Aiden's humanitarian concern, you might not even be able to drink duck neck blood. At this moment, the pig blood in his hand suddenly became extremely hot. He couldn't hold it for a moment, and then the pig blood in his hand fell to the ground in an instant. Looking at the pig blood spilled all over the ground, his heart was broken at this moment. What was even worse was that a pair of feet stepped on it, and the owner of the feet was later. The vampire was completely furious at this moment. He suddenly rushed towards afterwards and pushed him to the ground with just one encounter. Damn human, how dare you touch my dinner? Then use your blood to fill my stomach. Hearing this, afterwards looked indifferent. Then you can try it. I want to see if the curse on your neck works. As soon as these words came out, the vampire's arrogance disappeared instantly. At this moment, the later fat intestine suddenly rushed out of his stomach, and then the fat intestine slowly stretched into the vampire's mouth. Don't talk. This dinner is my gift to you. Then the vampire was surprised to find that the power of the curse disappeared, and his sealed magic power was slowly recovering. Later smiled. I can remove the curse of all prisoners. Do you want to kill Aiden with me? At the same time, Flanda followed Aiden's instructions and came to the warehouse. What surprised him was that there was a cold magic circle here. Aiden explained to him that this was to prevent the noses of certain prisoners, and this prisoner was the harmless Alice. After all, she had the ability to control animals, and the cold air array could block the heat perception of certain animals. Aiden continued, now we can start the next step. After a few days of investigation, I found that the prison can be roughly divided into 3 categories of prisoners. The first category is the prisoners who cannot be educated and are born violent. They are also the source of prison riots. I call them rioters. The second category is the prisoners who have to stay in prison. Most of them are just idling around in prison. I call them neutrals. The third category is prisoners who are ostracized by the outside world. They feel more comfortable in prison than outside, so I call them the model group. Our next plan is to gather the power of the model group, support a boss inside, and then use the power of the prisoners to defeat the prisoners. The Rose prison is about to undergo a major reshuffle. Under the planning of Warden Aiden, the prisoners in the prison are divided into 3 camps, representing the untamed rioters, the neutrals who are forced to stay in prison, and the model camps who prefer to stay in prison than outside. Warden Aiden's next plan is to support the model faction and use the power of the prisoners to defeat them. Under the afterglow, a group of ants are working hard, and the vampire is showing everyone his newly released magic power. This is exactly the next plan of later, using the removal of the spell as bait to attract more prisoners to join him. Obviously, the effect was surprisingly good. The rioting prisoners had no ability to resist this bait. Seeing that the time was almost right, later slowly appeared and said, if you want the potion to remove the curse, you must obey all my instructions and bring more prisoners while I am making the potion. Seeing how arrogant he was, the prisoners began to question him. You are a newcomer. What right do you have to command us? How can we trust you based on just a few words from you? Facing the doubts, After was very calm. The next second, countless tentacles suddenly emerged from his body and rushed towards the prisoners at a very fast speed. When he retracted the tentacles again, the prisoners were surprised to find a mysterious mark on their arms. Don't be nervous, everyone. Once you successfully escape from prison, the brand will disappear. But before that, you must obey me, otherwise you will die without a burial place. On the other hand, Aiden also took action. Under his instructions, a large number of prisoners were relocated to new cells, and a small number of prisoners were even released early. The released prisoner was confused. Did you make a mistake? My sentence should end next month. The prison guard was speechless. I was released early, and you are not happy about it? Frando was in the corner, observing the prisoners' movements all the time, but to his relief, everything went smoothly. At the same time, in the square of the prison, the prisoners who were subdued by later were now frantically trying to win over other prisoners. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. You should go back to the cell. Why go back? Didn't Aiden say that we would be given 3 days of freedom? Veronica said calmly. You can do whatever you want during the day, but we prison guards need to rest at night. Do you want to cause trouble for me? Hearing this, the prisoners instantly quieted down. On the one hand, they were afraid of the werewolf's strength, and on the other hand, they had been told not to have conflicts with the prison guards in the future. After thinking it over again and again, they returned to the prison obediently. But when they returned to the prison, they found that their cells had been occupied by others. Before they could lose their temper, the twin warden arrived with a large number of prison guards. In view of your violent behavior against other prisoners during the day, Lord Aiden has decided to change your cells. Your new room is at the back. Go in by yourself. As soon as these words came out, the Birdman was about to start another riot, but suddenly the snakeman next to him thought of something. If we are all together, wouldn't it be better for us to communicate? We can also develop new people around us. After some discussion, They decided to go to the new cell right away. After, who was standing by witnessed the whole process. He didn't understand why Aiden wanted to gather the prisoners together. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something. Before entering the prison, Anthony had warned him to be careful of the cells marked with black, as they held the highest-ranking prisoners in the Rose prison. At this time, the rioters seemed to realize something. Before they could start discussing, the sound of claws being sharpened appeared on this floor, and the sound was made by the so-called senior prisoners. Birdman collapsed. Forget about discussing. I can't even sleep tonight. Later also figured it out. The purpose of Aiden's partial plan of the cell was nothing more than harassing the rioting prisoners. At this moment, he heard a voice in his ear again. If I can eat this well every day, I am willing to stay in prison for the rest of my life. That's right. There are so many of us aliens out there who don't have enough food to eat and are discriminated against by normal people. I really don't understand why there are still people who want to escape from prison. After listening for a while, later, gradually felt something was wrong. How come the prisoners here all have common topics? All this is Aiden's layout. First, he gathered the model prisoners and let them unscrupulously promote the good of the prison to attract the neutral prisoners. The rioters implemented a policy of interference. Anyway, I can't convince you, so I will fight violence with violence. In the cells among the model factions were the prisoners carefully selected by Aiden, namely the mercenary leader Jin Jia and his cunning strategist Aya. Warden Aiden's second step of the plan officially began. First, he arranged the prisoners of the same faction in the same cell, and then asked the model prisoners to publicize the benefits of the prison, so as to win over the neutral faction, while the rioters adopted a policy of fighting violence with violence. The next plan is to support the former mercenary leader Jin Jia, and let him gather the power of the model faction to counter the riot faction. Late at night, Franda and the werewolf found him. They came to Jin Jia to ask for the list of prisoners who would participate in the reclamation. Not long ago, Aiden used a barrel of wine as a lure to get the Jin family to agree to help him find someone to open up the prison's wasteland. But what he didn't expect was that as soon as Franda finished speaking, he heard voices mocking him from all around. But just when the Jin family wanted to reject Franda, his military advisor Aya stopped him and said, "Boss, have you noticed that the prisoners around us seem to be specially selected? These people either have short sentences, or they entered the prison to seek asylum, and some even regard the prison as their home. They have never thought of escaping from prison. I roughly calculated that there are about 200 prisoners who don't want to escape. So Lord Aiden doesn't want us to be cannon fodder, but wants us to take the opportunity to gather a huge force under the pretext of opening up new land and giving benefits, so as to fight against the rioters. And the reason why Lord Aiden chose you is probably because he knew that you were once the leader of a mercenary group." The Jin family was very disdainful of what he said. No matter how nice you say it, you are still his running dog. Don't forget how our mercenary group was destroyed. Being someone else's dog will not end well. You love your master, but your master doesn't love you anymore. But this time it's different. First of all, the warden is on our side. Secondly, those prisoners just want to escape and won't fight us to death. Besides, even if we don't agree, someone else will do it, and then we will lose the initiative." Hearing this, Jin Jia sighed helplessly, and then he slowly said, "Does anyone want a drink? I have some good wine distributed by the prison." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding prisoners responded one after another, especially the succubus who seemed particularly excited. "Jin Jia, you must take me with you. Old sister must help me." Hiding in the corner, Ho also understood Aiden's true intention at this moment, but he was not panicked at all, because in his eyes, these people were just a mob. As long as I can win over Alice, then escaping from prison will be easy. A long time ago, he was Alice's student, but because he used human bodies for experiments, he was expelled from the mock assembly by Alice. At that time, later, was very puzzled. I just used beggars who were ignored by everyone to do experiments, and no one would find out. You still dare to quibble at this time? I'm reminding you, if you don't get out now, when Teacher Gaia comes, you won't have the chance to get out. As they were talking, a monster with a snake tail and 4 hands rushed over. It was none other than the Gaia mentor Alice had mentioned. "Gee, Taime, you were looking for death." Only at this moment did later feel fear, and he immediately began to flee in panic. But it was obvious that Gaia was not going to let him go. He spit out a wave of energy from his mouth, and that energy wave instantly sent, later, flying. Under the gaze of the witch Alice, he flew far away, and the place where he was about to fall was called the Land of God's Fall. But later, fortunately, he not only survived, but also used the secret technique of God to create Aiden. Now his strength is no weaker than that of his former mentor Alice. But what he doesn't know is that behind him, there is a little white mouse watching him quietly. At this time, Aiden was not idle either. "Congratulations, Jim Carrey, you can be released from prison now." Jim Carrey's face was full of suspicion. When did you become so kind? Warden Aiden is about to make a huge gamble with the prisoners. If he wins, he will gain a large number of loyal followers. If he loses, he and the Rose prison will be doomed. It turns out that in order to check and balance the rioters, Aiden asked Jinjia, the former head of the mercenary group, to gather the strength of the model faction. Things went smoothly, but in the eyes of the Warden Aiden, they still needed a test. So he found the former bounty hunter Jim Carrey and announced to release him early. Jim Carrey was incredulous. When did you become so kind? You don't need to worry about this. I just want to ask if you want to get out. Jim Carrey certainly thought about it, but he also knew that he would have to pay a price. Sure enough, when he changed his clothes and was about to leave the prison, Aiden stopped him and said, "Don't leave in a hurry. Let's talk about a business related to your bounty hunter." On the other side, in the prison cafeteria, almost all the prisoners were discussing matters concerning the Jean family, and they were already eager to work for the prison. Later, he also found his old acquaintance here, his former mentor, the witch Alice. With just one glance, Alice recognized the student she had driven away. Later, he spoke first. "Teacher, I can help you escape from prison." Hearing this, Alice smiled. "I'm overthinking. When did I say I wanted to escape from prison? I'm doing fine in prison." "Come on, teacher. After all these years, don't I know you? I know you don't trust me yet. To show my sincerity, I will show you my bargaining chips. This is the secret technique I learned in the land of God's fall. I call it prosperity. Let's take this Kuan egg as an example. As long as it touches prosperity, it can quickly turn into a handsome Kuan Kuan. In the same way, we can use it to catalyze the prison's magic collar, causing it to age and become damaged in a very short time. Of course, I also know that you, teacher, have signed a contract with Aiden. Once you betray Aiden, the curse will be triggered and you will die suddenly. But prosperity can still solve this problem. When the dosage used by Shui Kunken exceeds a critical point, Shui Kunken will split into two Shui Kunkens, and the two are completely unrelated. This means that you can let the split clone bear the curse brought by the contract for you. After listening to this, Alice smiled and said, "For the sake of our relationship as master and disciple, if you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened." Hearing the word, later, he instantly showed an expression of disbelief, but the next second, he laughed again. "Teacher Alice, you are really a joker. I guess you want to wait until Aiden and I are both defeated before escaping from prison." Alice said, "You are so smart." At this moment, several prisoners suddenly walked in. It turned out to be the rioters led by Birdman. They caused a riot as soon as they came in. Birdman beat up a prisoner without any warning. "Sisters, come on, get rid of all Aiden's lackeys." The scene fell into chaos for a while, and later watched all this calmly. "Teacher, you can choose now. Either stop me and become my enemy completely, or sit back and watch the show and join us." At this time, Aiden had just received the list of prisoners who participated in the farming. 202 prisoners, that's enough. "My idea is that you can learn to make wine while growing potatoes." When the Jean family heard about making wine, they instantly became excited. "Great Warden, I am willing to fully support you." At this time, Aiden suddenly changed the subject. "But here comes the problem again. We don't have seeds. How about this? You guys go out of prison and buy some seeds." After these words came out, Jean, Jia, and Aya were stunned. "Don't be afraid. I trust you. Not only that, I will send prisoners to help you." Just then, a prison guard walked in. "Lord Aiden, the prisoner you asked for, Gila, is here." So, the confused Jean family and their 5 equally confused companions came to the prison gate. What was even more unbelievable was that the mayor of District 1 of the city personally escorted them out. Even after they walked out of the prison gate, they still felt like they were dreaming. The group of people walked on the street and attracted a lot of attention, but what they didn't know was that Jim Carrey was watching them quietly in the dark. It turns out that this is the business that Aiden and he did. He let Jim Carrey monitor them as a bounty hunter, and once they show signs of escaping, only death will await them. He is the cutest prisoner in the Rose prison, but also the one who wants to escape the most. But just when Jalala was about to take action, he was suddenly frightened and lost control of his bowels and bladder. It turned out that all this was a trap set by the Warden Aiden. In order to verify whether the model prisoners are truly loyal, he asked the Kim family to take Gilala and others out to purchase seeds needed for farming. At the same time, Aiden also hired bounty hunter Jim Carrey to monitor them. Once they show signs of escape, only death will await them. Led by the wood elf Jalala, they came to the slums of Silver City. As they walked further in, the number of people began to decrease, and the houses became more and more dilapidated. Red Fox Demon Mandy sensed something was wrong. The curse mark on her neck began to loosen slowly, which meant that she was about to leave the range of the forbidden magic circle. Aya, the smartest among the group, also noticed something was wrong. Jalala stopped pretending and took off the wooden sign representing the prisoners. "Why are you pretending to be confused? We need to take a longer route to plan our escape." The scene comes to Aiden's office, and Franda asks in confusion, "How did you know that Jalala was going to escape from prison?" Aiden spoke slowly. "I ask him to check on Ajin every day, but he has been absent from work for several days in a row. If he was a child, I could understand it, but unfortunately, he is over 170 years old. The sudden change made me guess that he had other thoughts." The scene returns to Jalala, who grits his teeth and says, "Do you know how I've been spending the past few days? I've had to endure strong murderous intent all the time, and I was almost killed by the rioting prisoners. They definitely wouldn't dare to mess with you guys who are big and strong. But for a short and weak soft persimmon like me, everyone would want to bully me. Aiden gave me 10 kilograms of sticks, which I can use as travel expenses for my escape. What do you think?" Hearing this, Mandy became interested. "I agree. It just so happens that I have many lovers who can protect me. The closest one is in the Gistas Empire. However, the witch in the demon flame forest in the middle doesn't get along with me, so I need Sister Jin's escort." The Jean family said, "Go away." After being rejected, Mandy instantly turned into a dog licker. "Sister Jean, will you come with me?" Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, I quickly interrupted him. "Don't you guys notice anything strange? Jalala, don't you notice anything unusual either?" But what he didn't expect was that at this time, Jalala had already quietly picked up the discarded wooden sign and said, "I'm sorry, everyone. I took the wrong road. Let's go buy potatoes now." At this moment, he had lost his previous arrogance, and his legs were shaking wildly. I also understood at this moment that this was a trap from the beginning. They first gave us the illusion that we could be free, and then destroyed this illusion with overwhelming despair, making people dare not guess or think. I's guess was correct. They were already surrounded by bounty hunters, and they were ready to attack at any time. Jalala, who was born with the ability to observe the emotions of those around her, also completely collapsed in the endless murderous intent. The scene returns to the office of Warden Aiden. "So if you want the wolf to be loyal, you must first let him know what fear is." A Jean, who was sitting opposite him, listened with great interest. "So Little Red Riding Hood can tame the wolf? Then Grandma won't be eaten?" "It depends on you, little Ajin. Nothing is absolute." After listening, Ajin seemed to understand something. At this moment, the image of future appeared in his mind. At this moment, the prison alarm suddenly sounded. Flanda was incredulous. There was a riot in the cafeteria, but isn't Alice there? Warden Aiden was also confused. Why would there be a problem with the cafeteria? That's where all the prisoners eat. It won't benefit anyone if it's destroyed. Besides, isn't Alice guarding there? Is there something wrong with her? Moreover, after such a long time, none of the rioting prisoners escaped from prison. This is very abnormal. There must be someone behind the scenes directing them. After figuring it out, Aiden slowly said, "Let the prison guards observe carefully to see who is directing that group of prisoners." The scene came to the cafeteria, which was already in a mess. Later, looked at Alice proudly. "In the end, you still didn't make a move. So, are you going to beg Aiden to forgive you, or join our team?" Alice snorted coldly. "Do you think I will surrender so easily? Don't dream." At this time, the prisoners around were still fighting. Tables and chairs were overturned, food was scattered all over the floor, and it was a mess. Aiden paced back and forth in the office, thinking about how to deal with it. He knew that this cafeteria riot was no accident, and there must be a bigger conspiracy behind it. He must find out the truth as soon as possible, otherwise the prison will fall into a more dangerous situation. At the same time, in other parts of the prison, the prisoners were also talking about what was going on in the cafeteria, while others were planning to take advantage of the chaos to do something. The entire prison was filled with a tense and uneasy atmosphere. The werewolf was trying to maintain order in other areas of the prison. He patrolled the corridors and watched every cell vigilantly. The prisoners who wanted to take the opportunity to cause trouble shut up when they saw the werewolf's cold eyes. Franda was also busy. He led the remaining prison guards to strengthen the defense of important areas of the prison. He knew that if those evil-minded prisoners succeeded, the prison would be completely out of control. Thinking for a moment, Aiden decided to go to the cafeteria in person. He knew that only by facing the problem could he find a solution. He straightened his clothes, picked up his weapon, and strode towards the cafeteria. When he arrived at the cafeteria door, the noise inside hit him. He took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and shouted, "Stop it!" His voice echoed in the cafeteria, full of majesty. When the prisoners who were fighting heard the sound, they stopped what they were doing and turned to look at the door. Seeing that it was Aiden, some prisoners showed fear, while later, S' face darkened and a trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. Aiden's eyes swept through the crowd and finally landed on Ho-Ho. "I don't care what your purpose is, you can't cause trouble here." Ho-Ho smiled disdainfully. "Aiden, don't be too proud. Today's matter is not over yet." Ignoring his provocation, Aiden began to investigate the cause of the riot. He questioned some prisoners and gradually pieced together what happened from their answers. It turned out that Ho-Ho deliberately instigated the rebellious prisoners and provoked this conflict. After understanding the situation, Aiden looked at afterwards. Do you think you can achieve your goal like this? Too naive. Afterwards sneered. Just wait and see. Aiden, this is just the beginning. Aiden knew that the battle with the future had just begun, and he had to be more careful and maintain the order of the prison.